In 859, during the late bloody years of the Second Era, Arconius Lim was born to a lesser noble family in Nibene. At a young age, he decided to leave his responsibilities behind and join the Guild of Mages, much to the displeasure of his father, Albinus. But economic circumstances conspired against Albinus's narrow-mindedness, and after some years he finally had to give his blessing to Arconius. At the age of 17, Arconius happily left the trappings of nobility behind and, given a small stipend, joined the guild in Mir Corrup. Ever quick with his wit, the young apprentice became the delight of his fellow guild members. A wild variety of tricks and trinkets were created directly or indirectly through his work. When he moved on after a tumultuous 2 years and a promotion to journeyman, many tears were shed. He spent his next few years travelling southern Cyrodiil, picking up secrets and wealth in spades. He gained travel companions through his noble deeds and generosity, and together they withstood the many dangers of the jungles and swamps. Many travel caravans only arrived at their destinations due to Arconius's diligence, and countless beasts, both two-legged and otherwise, were slain to make the rivers safe. By his work, he aided the imperial effort in pacifying the new province of Black Marsh, and this was recognized and appreciated. He was finally promoted to magician at the age of 30, having made a powerful impression on the right people. By the age of 38, he had settled down in Cheydinhal, earned a well-deserved reputation, and risen rapidly through the ranks of the guild. Through his travels, he had picked up several orphans of unknown parentage and was raising them as his own. Despite never marrying himself, he had turned into a pillar of the local community, and more than a handful of people were quite fond of Uncle Archon. However, Arconius began to feel as trapped in his life in Cheydinhal as he had been at his family's estate so long ago. Thankfully, his reputation provided a final chance at greatness. The guild leadership, in recognition of his talents, offered Arconius the title of Archmagister and charged him with establishing the Mages Guild in newly conquered Morrowind. As the guild had no presence in that province before the Third Era, it would take a man with great talents to establish a foothold there. Arconius took to this opportunity like a fish to water and quickly agreed. After a tearful farewell, he left his family behind and made his way east to the dark elven lands. On the way, a few of his old travel companions who had fallen on hard times joined with him to act as his bodyguards until a proper command of the Order of the Lamp could be organized. When he arrived in Almalexia, he had little to work with but the few guild members who had arrived just a few days earlier and an old building that had been cleared out for the guild's use. Thankfully, wit and charm, his strongest weapons, stood by his side, and he made quite an impression on the dour, dark elves. Through his years as Archmagister, he personally helped uncover the secrets of several Dwemer ruins, and was one of the first to catalogue the wards of dark elven ancestral tombs. Upon his untimely passing, due to an unexpected potions accident at the age of 52, he could look back on a life of success and adventure. His successors were able to build on his legacy by founding new guild halls outside of Almalexia with the goodwill he created. So did Arconius Lim, in his own way, continue the good works of Venus Galerian. This story was first told to me when I was a neonate, newly studying in the Crystal Tower of Somerset. I was admiring the famous animal pens of the tower when I was approached by an older student. The fellow who told me this tale seemed very trustworthy at first, but as the reader will soon discover, the tale is very dubious indeed. Of course, I have told it since to other neonates of the tower in the same spirit. I offer the following for your august consideration, gentle reader. Many, many years back, a talented but poor bard was passing through Somerset, looking for work. He could sing, he could dance, he could act, but no one had any use for his performances. The poor bard was lugubrious, but he still visited the taverns and palaces day after day, begging for a chance to showcase his talents. One day, dejected from more bad luck, he was approached by a tall elf in a long robe, a magister of the Crystal Tower in charge of the animal pens. The elf tells the bard of the white ape they made a cell for at the tower, how it had died en route. There was a royal party from First Hold visiting who had been promised a glimpse at the rare white ape. The magister had a costume for the bard if he would deign to act out the part of the ape for the visitors. The bard had promised himself to take the first part that came his way, no matter how minor, so he agreed. The elf promised that the charade would last no longer than a fortnight when the visitors left. For the first several days of the masquerade, the bard did nothing more than sit in the back of the pen. He was afraid to move and show the possible imperfections of the ape costume. In time, he became bored and began walking around. He suddenly noticed that the royal party was watching, fascinated. Happy that the ruse was working, he decided to enliven the act. Soon, he had both a performance and a crowd. Instead of dancing a traditional elven jig, he would swing around the cell with every acrobatic trick he knew. Instead of singing a ballad, he would roar a roar he imagined a rare white ape might roar. The crowd loved it. The party outside his cell grew larger and larger every day. One day he was performing for the crowd, his finest work to date. He swung himself round and round, roaring and bleating. His hand slipped, and he went flying through the bar and into the cell next door, where a snow wolf was in residence. Hackling its back and growling, the snow wolf began to inch toward the bard. Seeing no other way out, the bard screamed, "Help! Help!" The snow wolf whispered, "Shut up, or you'll get us all fired." A Fable from Valenwood by Eloin. It was mere half a mile across the Elden Grove, amongst full-leaved oaks and patterns of silvery cypress, where the foxes were resting through the night, and atop the branches, owls were singing a gentle tune, slowly caressing the range of fauna in their slumbers. Untouched by the ever-restless man, and only ventured to upon a call by mare, the creatures were at peace with a cordial feeling to all the living in their hearts in the shades of Audiobooks. Their provider it was, the forest, and with deepest respect they treated it, from the smallest worm and mouse to the fox, goose, deer, and bear. No disease had ever ravaged trees or ones who had built their abodes under them, nor had a single tree ever been cut down or an animal killed by the hand of the elves who had lived by Audiobooks for centuries. A pact between people had been made to keep out of it, not through fear, but instead respect, understanding, and sensibility. With the forest's allure so strong and affecting all in its sphere, no one knew fear. A fortress full of life for animals, and a wall on the town's hillside, bound to it were they all. A perfect symmetry, unspoken yet unbroken pact, sealed with no sacrifices from either side, but a promise for love and life. In life, everyone encounters problems or troubles. Sometimes people find them hard to deal with. That's where the temple and your faith come in. Through devotion, prayer, and this book, you will learn how to become a better mer. To put your inner strength to work battling against your trials, there are 3 simple but powerful steps you must follow. The first step: perform an act of virtue. What act in particular does not have any bearing. There are many virtuous acts that one might do: make a pilgrimage, help the impoverished, convert a non-believer to the religion of our temple, take a vow of silence or fast for some days, or make a particularly kind donation to the temple. You might ask a priest for a suggestion. The second step: now when you complete that act, remember the feeling that comes to you. For different people it may vary, a sense of achievement, a sense of happiness, a sense of relief even. It will be a good feeling, the good feeling that all people receive upon doing a good deed. Commit it to memory well. The third step: when next you encounter difficulty or hardship, face it head on and do this. Recall the feeling attained by performing the good act. Fix it firmly in your mind and use it as your motivation. This is the strongest motivation possible, the divine motivation of higher achievement. When you are touched by this, your inner strength shines brightest and will rise up to deal with your problems immediately. You may not recognize yourself when you do so. Such is the transforming power of faith. If you wish to better yourself further, you may consider studying the paths of various saints, depending on the aspect of yourself you wish to improve. The book, Lives of the Saints, contains a short description of some figures that were canonized for their piety and unwavering faith. You may be able to find books that chronicle the life of specific saints in more detail in some bookstores, or possibly the library of your local temple. Read some of the sacred writings of Vivek, or arrange to be at your temple's next sermon reading. They can enlighten the mind and touch the soul. If you, like many people, take comfort in prayer, I have compiled here some prayers, specially written to give strength to you to combat your troubles. Use these in conjunction with the third step, and you will be able to dismiss the hardest challenges. Affirmative prayer for strength against negativity of self and others. Negativity destroys hope. Hope shall be the beacon by which I navigate throughout my life. I shall not pay heed to the hopelessness of negativity. No will not be taken for an answer. Perseverance shall be my pillar of support, and I shall rise up and defeat denial, lest my mind is weakened by my constant refusal. Alm Sivi. Prayer of perfection and guiding beauty. Beauty shall bring me to my fullness, for I shall take the beauty unto myself and model myself after it, ever striving at the ideal set by my betters, so that I might become strong and perfect, as shall hideousness too move me to perfection by providing the power of repulsion. Alm Sivi. Prayer of shining light. The holy light of confidence shall surround me, and mark me as one of strong will, blinding those who would seek to mislay me, and illuminating me to those who recognize my strength, so that I need not speak for my words to be known as truthful, and that I need not act for my actions to be known as righteous. Alm Sivi. Prayer of unmoving resistance. A rock supports me at either side, so that I shall not falter or be shaken, though I am caressed with words sweet as honey, and buffeted with threats as sharp as knives. My stubbornness shall be undying and infinite, until I succeed in winning my way. Alm Sivi. Notes. Again, you might wish to work some of these into your daily prayers. You can ask the priests at your local temple for help on how to do this. And now you can go out into the world and use what I have taught you in this book. Alm Sivi, my friends, and remember that every day is a divine miracle. The ancient city of Almalexia is the glittering jewel in Morrowind's crown. The city is the largest in Morrowind and sprawls across the landscape. Almalexia is also the center of politics and commerce in Morrowind, as it is the home of the Lady Almalexia, as well as being the seat of House Indoril, a stronghold of the temple, and the capital of Morrowind. Almalexia is divided into several administrative districts. Members of House Indoril reside primarily in the Indoril district to the northeast of the city, which also contains the council hall of House Indoril and the headquarters of the Ordinators. The Manor district to the west contains the mansions of wealthy nobles and merchants, as well as the Abbey of St. Delin. Western Gate is home to the Ordinator barracks and is a major entrance to the city proper. Velathril Avenue to the south is a major thoroughfare, and large apartment buildings as well as the hospital and artisans' halls are located there. And in the centre lies Mournhold, with its bustling markets, extravagant accommodation, and brooding royal palace. Towering over it all is the beautiful temple, home to Mother Almalexia. The city lies in a lush valley where two mountain ranges meet in the centre of southern Morrowind. The surrounding area is mountainous, with some low valleys and grasslands. Almalexia enjoys a temperate climate, with it being neither too warm in summer nor too cold in winter. The city is sheltered from cold winds by the neighbouring mountains, and the adjacent lowlands are perfect for agriculture. A deep river leads to the sea, allowing access between the inner sea and the city. The city has not always been called Almalexia. As far back as can be remembered, the city was called Mournhold, and is often still referred to by that name. It is thought that the city was established soon after the Khymer followed the holy prophet Veloth to Resdain. A rumour persists that the city was founded upon a Dwemer fortress, but this obviously disrespectful tale is nothing but a myth. Mournhold was established in a strategically important area at the confluence of two rivers and surrounded by mountains. The city itself probably began as a stronghold, but this function may have become less important after the end of the Nord occupation and uniting of the Dwemer and Khymer in Resdain under Lord Indoril Nerevar and Dumak Dwarf King. The city entered a golden age with Resdain under the guidance of Lords Nerevar and Dumak. The population is thought to have swelled considerably during this peaceful period, as Lord Nerevar made Mournhold his capital. Mournhold became the largest city in Resdain as artisans, merchants and clerics flocked to the city, following the administrative apparatus of the First Council. The peace also allowed the city to expand outside of the old stronghold fortifications, and farmers were encouraged to settle in the nearby lowlands. After 250 years of peace, the War of the First Council was initiated by the blasphemous Dwemer and treacherous Sixth House, and led to much suffering in Resdain. The war was fought at Red Mountain, but many sons of Mournhold perished. Sixth House insurgents present in Mournhold rebelled, and many innocent Dunmer were killed before the treacherous ones were overcome. Still more citizens of Mournhold perished in the famine that occurred after the eruption of Red Mountain. The ash from the eruption covered the fields near Mournhold, poisoning crops and livestock. It is said that refugee columns stretched from horizon to horizon as people fled the city to find food. Almalexia, Vivek and Sota Sil attained godhood through their works at Red Mountain and formed the Tribunal Temple in order that they might better watch over the Dunmer. The temple incorporated many of the old ways and was based in Mournhold. After the tragic death of Lord Nerevar and the glorious ascent of the tribunal, Mournhold began to decline in stature as other regional house capitals gained influence. Nevertheless, it remained the largest city in Resdain. The theocracy of Resdain at that time enjoyed a long period of stability, with house conflicts settled by the council, Morag Tong or House War. Resdain was the most powerful nation on Tamriel, and all envied her glory. Though the grandeur was not to last, as the many small human kingdoms slowly consolidated into a single empire under a line of Cyrodiilic despots. This nation grew mighty, and the Holy Tribunal watched with growing apprehension. Eventually, all areas of Tamriel came to be under the control of the Emperor, even the lands of the haughty Altmer. Only Resdain was free. At the end of the First Era, the Empire invaded Resdain, the last free nation on Tamriel. After 80 years of warfare, Lord Vivek negotiated a truce with the Empire. The truce forced the Dunmer to allow the establishment of a chain of imperial forts, stretching from Firewatch in the east to Blacklight in the west. While the truce was controversial, Vivek decided that this would be the best course for his people. However, just weeks after the truce had been signed, the deceitful Mehrunes Dagon was summoned by a coven of ungodly witches and incited to attack Mournhold. The city was burnt to the ground and utterly destroyed. As were countless others, Indoril Brindisi Dorom, Duke of Mournhold, was slain by the Daedra and his lesser minions. Almalexia and Sotha Sil rushed to Mournhold as fast as they could, and banished Mehrunes Dagon back to oblivion. But it was too late to save the city and its populace. The rebuilding of Mournhold began at once, planned intimately by Lord Sota Sil. Under his guidance, and with the use of his sacred creations, the city of Almalexia was returned to its former glory upon the ruins old Mournhold. Thus the city was built with an order and structure missing from all other cities in Morrowind. The new city was renamed Almalexia, as Lady Almalexia chose to make the capital her home. A mighty temple was built for Almalexia to reside in at the centre of the restored city. Though she often took long absences from Mournhold, whenever she was resident she walked among the populace and helped those in need. To commemorate the banishment of Mehrunes Dagon, a statue of Almalexia was erected in the new Plaza Brindisidorum. After the collapse of the First Cyrodiilic Empire in the Second Era, much of Tamriel dissolved into small warring states. Morrowind, however, remained intact due to the wisdom and guidance of the Tribunal. Almalexia was maintained as the capital, and the Holy Tribunal remained the absolute power in the land. It is at this time that the inhabitants of the distant land of Akavir attempted to invade Morrowind, but Vivec taught the Dunmer how to breathe water, and all of Morrowind was flooded to defeat the menace. Almalexia escaped much of the flooding, and the little damage that did occur was cosmetic only. The city was saved from the invaders thanks to the actions of mighty Vivec. 300 years after the flooding of Morrowind, the Cyrodiilic general Talos, later known as Tiber Septim, united the kingdoms of men under his rule. Only Morrowind and the Aldmeri nation remained free. Tiber Septim then turned his attention to Morrowind and demanded that it submit to his rule. The temple with houses Indoril, Dress and Redoran opposed this, while the weak Hlalu proposed appeasement of the empire, and the Telvanni refused to become involved. The legions of Septim massed on Morrowind's border, and Redoran troops prepared to do battle. The leadership of House Indoril was certain Morrowind would fall to the legions, and was unwilling to support House Redoran's foolhardy intention to face the legions, so an extensive campaign of insurrectionary warfare was planned. However, the occupation never came to pass. Even as the legions invaded Morrowind, Vivec again saved Morrowind. After some initial skirmishes, he announced that a truce had been negotiated, allowing Morrowind to retain its customs and temple, while Morrowind again nominally became an imperial province. A king was put in place to rule over Morrowind as a puppet of the Cyrodiilic emperor. The throne of the king was established in Almalexia, as was only natural. After all, Almalexia was the mightiest city in all Morrowind. The city was again saved from destruction, as the legions would surely have looted and smashed this glittering capital of Morrowind. Many Indoril leaders chose the honor of taking their own lives, rather than submitting to imperial rule. House Hlalu also expanded at the expense of House Indoril through murder and theft, and the devious Hlalu merchants grew rich through trade with the empire. General Symmachus, who had led part of the resistance against the legions until the truce, became king of Morrowind in Mournhold and married Queen Berenzia. The queen bore 2 children, the headstrong Prince Helseth and the beautiful Princess Morgaia. Peace was not to last in the capital, however, as the population of Almalexia became unhappy with the deterioration of relations between the Empire and Morrowind. Unbeknownst to any, the Emperor Uriel Septim VII had been replaced by his evil mage, Jagar Tharn, who initiated new hostile policies against Morrowind. Symmachus was killed by the crowd during a revolt in the year 391 of the Third Era, while Berenzia and her children fled the city. There was little damage to Mournhold, as many of the guards with the throng also turned on the palace civil bureaucracy. The temple and Almalexia remained in control of much of the city by influencing the rebels and ensuring a minimum of bloodshed. After Tharn was defeated, Berenzia chose not to return to Mournhold and moved to Wayrest, so King Lethan was chosen by Almalexia to restore order to the city. Lethan was much beloved by the people, and the crowd dispersed. 5 years later, Lethan himself led a mighty army against the vile beastmen to the south, destroying their armies and taking thousands of slaves. Throughout the history of Almalexia, It has been unrivaled as the centre of administration and civilization in Morrowind. Under the guidance of generous King Lethan and the beneficent Lady Almalexia, the magnificent metropolis continues to grow in authority, the home of a god and capital of all Morrowind. A History of Saturalia by Edwin Arkidge. In the High Rock Kingdom of Wayrest, few holidays are so beloved as the Wintertide Festival of Saturalia. Originally a regional festivity, Saturalia's undeniable appeals have broadened its popularity across much of the empire. Traditionally, Saturalia is a time for feasting, drinking, and exchanging gifts, a celebration of warmth in the deep of winter. Saturalia began its long history as a midwinter festival among the Bulezai and sedentary Wayrest Nedics, dedicated to the god Sadhuil. A now forgotten god of merriment, debauchery, and love, Sadhuil has in modern times been identified with Sanguine and even Dibella. For the ancient Wayrestians, Sadhuil's feast was a time for great indulgence in food, drink, and sex, a tradition that has filtered down to a degree into modern Saturalia traditions. However, it was not until the early Third Era that the Saturalia we know came into being. When Tiber Septim brought Wayrest and High Rock into his empire, it was his lieutenant Saturio who was made interim governor of Wayrest. Aside from many advances in infrastructure and governance, Governor Saturio was noted for his great piety and considerable effort in spreading the imperial faith to the heathen Bretons, who then worshipped an eclectic assortment of elven, Nordic, and pagan Nedic deities, resembling imprecisely the modern gods of the Bretons. In early Third Era Wayrest, Sadhuil was one of these, highly popular during his midwinter festival. Saturio, noting this popularity, hoped to turn the religious dedication to Sadhuil's faith to the imperial cult, and was remarkably successful. So dedicated was he in his pursuit and emulation of Sadhuili practices, distributing gifts to families across the city and drinking barrels of wine in company. Saturio could not but be welcomed into the Wayrestian tradition, but he had not, as some Rivkals suggested, gone native. As his position in the Wayrestians' estimations rose, his gods Dibella, Mara, and Arche seemed more and more to represent the spirit of wintertide merriment to the Bretons. Within 3 years, Sadhuil's name had begun to vanish from midwinter celebrations, and a great many Wayrestians began to follow Saturio's new cult. And after his death, the memory of Saturio had begun to replace the heathen festival deity. For his role in bringing Wayrest into the imperial fold, Saturio was declared a saint of the imperial cult, and since Saturio's day, a recognized holy day. But the memory of Sadhuili traditions survives through Saturio's legacy, and Saint Saturio is today a jovial winter spirit to whom the generous giving of gifts is attributed. Good little children who keep the 9 and obey their parents will be given gifts by old Saint Saturio, or Saturalisman, while their parents enjoy a hearty drink in his honor.
The 100 Dream Visions of Callistus, prophetic poems of the imperial cult. 73. Talos sweeps aside his enemies. Standing with my feet in Rumore's waters, I raised my eyes, and saw a tower that pierced the sky, a sky with stars that shone. Though it was day, I looked again, and the tower was a man, clad in white and gold. And he reached his hand to the east and gathered brazen armor. And he reached his hand to the west and swatted darting filigree birds. From temples that were like grains of sand and palaces of dust, kings came in supplication, and gods too. And he spoke from his wound, and they fell to their knees and became stones. He raised then a city of light and joy, which I did shake to see. A perfect mechanism of heaven, the pure work of our blessed monstrous forebears made good. 74. Talos purges the royalty of High Rock. The tonsured princes bemoaned their fate. He whispered, and the wooden crowns flew from their heads. I heard the crashing of rocks and the tumbling of palaces, as the slayers of Grandfather Zero vanished beneath the angry mountains. Tattered banners and the wails of seneschals gave color to the air, and slowly faded as new men and new women were called. Warriors and merchants became queens and kings, as the world was remade utterly, yet remained the same.
A Dunce in Morrowind, Volume 1, by Frolier Silverblood. It was a cold morning in the West Gash when Remin found me standing naked by the side of the road. He gave me a contemptful look, but slowed his pack-wars and his walk as he came to me. After staring at me like I was stupid for another minute or two, he finally spoke. "Why are you naked, Nord?" I was rather smug in my response. "Ha! I know what you might think, Dark Elf," I said. "You think I saw a comely lass or something, and not realizing she was a witch, I was tricked, hexed, and all my clothing stolen in my sleep. It is a rather common issue with you people." "Oh ho, but you see, I am not an average stupid Nord," I said. "I am an educated future noble from the famous College of Winterhold." "Uh-huh. And what exactly do you study at the college?" "I'm the caretaker for the student dorms." "I see. I read their books in the meantime when they aren't looking. Of course, I am not very good at reading, but I come from a very good pedigree. My father was executed by the Jarl, and my mother was 5 feet tall." Remin simply stared at me for a few minutes. "Why, pray tell, is this a good pedigree?" "Well, you see, my father was executed by the Jarl for mercantile fraud, the most wealthy form of crime there is. Surely this must reflect to his intelligence to commit such a profitable crime, no?" "No, it mustn't. And your mother?" "Yes, she was 5 feet tall." I received another stare. Remin looked away for a moment. He looked to me again. "So, it was not a witch who fooled you. Why are you naked, then?" "You see, there was a comely lass—" "Okay. There was a comely lass at the tavern. I was visiting Fort Frostmoth, you see, because I was drowning at the time." "You were drowning at the time?" "Yes, I was drowning, you see, because my boat had been destroyed by Droog." He paused. "I don't understand." "I set sail from Winterhold in a boat, you see, headed for Solitude for my cousin's wedding. I am not an expert on Skyrim, but is Dawnstar not west of Winterhold?" I chuckled. "Yes, and west I did go, Dark Elf. I've seen many maps in my time. West is to the left, so I sailed left, and would have arrived bright and early in Dawnstar, had it not been for the Droog that attacked my boat." "What?" "Once I was drowning, I simply used a scroll of divine intervention to arrive at Fort Frostmoth, where I caught a boat to cool. That's where I met the comely lass I mentioned." "I see." "Yes, and you see, here is the thing, and it should go to show you how educated I really am. You see, this comely lass, she was rumoured by the locals to be a witch. And wouldn't it be just so expected and stereotypical of a Nord in Morrowind to think that a woman is a witch just because she's a little unusual? And so I said, no, this woman is not a witch, and I will not be tricked or play into your stereotypes. And so I went home with her to her odd little camp outside town. Her camp? Yes, had a lot of odd skulls and potions around. While I wasn't looking, some sort of hex was placed on me. I assume she fought as hard as she could to stop my assailant, but alas, I was knocked out, and all my possessions stolen, including my beloved axe, Nip Tickler. Nip Tickler. My beloved axe, Nip Tickler. Nipped. Remin stopped himself from speaking again. "Okay, you seem a fool, but I am not without sympathy. If you wish, you may accompany me to Aldrun." "Old Run, you say?" "Aldrun. That is a common Western misconception." "Ah, you see, it is a common Eastern misconception that it's a common Western misconception." Remin paused. "That's called reverse psychology, you see," I said. "There are some clothes in one of the Guar's packs. Put something on," he said. "Try not to embarrass me when we get there." Publisher's note. The Dunce in Morrowind series, collected and edited by Frolya Silverblood, were originally assembled by the Sneezing Hawker Historical Society in Winterhold. Winterhold, as a centre of magical learning, is rather cosmopolitan for a city in the icy north, the Sneezing Hawker. Historical Society saw its fair share of dark elven and Nordic members who were often violently astonished by the ignorance about their respective homelands. Serving as an introduction to the Dunmer lands for the Society's Nordic members, The Dunce in Morrowind was a series of skits originally written by the late Ferrana Adrethi and acted out by regular members to much laughter and drink. The Dunce can easily be found in Winterhold as one of all too many nobles residing in town as prospective college students. Full of bluster, arrogance, and a dash of cunning, they are as much part of the city as they are guaranteed income for the Carpenters' Guild. A Dunce in Morrowind, Volume 2, by Frolya Silverblood. Lucky was I to have a guide to the Eastern Land, Morrowind, in Remin Sedrethi, who told me he is an up-and-coming merchant of House Hlalu, travelling to the Old Run on business. The walk was long, but Remin was so stingy that he wouldn't even pay for the Silt Strider in Genesis. It was also fortunate for me that he was good with his magic, which helped keep the cliff racers and Kaguti away from us. Aldrun is the seat of House Redoran on Vardenfell, he said to me. Ah, I replied. So, what's their gimmick? Gimmick? Sure, gimmick, I said. Have you ever been to the arena fighting in the Imperial City? We have an arena in Vivek, Sarah. Right. But the point is, every fighter has a gimmick. One guy's the sword guy, one guy's the magic guy, one guy's the coward. Those are acts they put on to make more money. Yes, and I, being rather intelligent myself, find it easy to see through, I said. But the point is, the Dunmer have gimmicks too. Remin stared at me. I don't understand. Sure you do. House Hlalu's gimmick is money, merchanting, governmenting, all that kind of thing. And I know that the Telvanni's gimmick is that they're unlikable heathens. Remin paused. That is strangely insightful of you. If I cooperate with your insane view of things for a moment, however, I would say that the Redoran's gimmick is that they are warriors. They are very big on honor and fighting and strength, whatever. Warriors, eh? Yes, Remin said. Amazing. So the Dunmer sort themselves into warriors, magicians, and thieves. Thieves? Well, isn't that what business is? Legalized theft? Remin paused. No. It's a very convenient system. There are more than 3 great houses, he said. Oh, that upsets it a bit. House Indoril and House Dress have no settlements on Vardenfell. The traditionalist insular Indoril have not had the enterprising drives of the other great houses. They receive enough political benefits from temple settlements that it makes no difference to them anyway. I sometimes think that they believe they own the temple. Temple, eh? Do you know anything of our religion, Sarah? Remember, I am a very educated future noble from the College of Winterhold. Yes, you keep saying, I, of course, know about the famous dark elf living gods Vivek, Sotha-Sil, and Mournhold. Mournhold. Yes, I said. You see, I, being very clever, realized that the gods of the Dark Elves all have a city named after them, like Vivek, or Sotha-Sil, which is a hidden, secret city where he hides the dwarves. What? That's where the dwarves went. They went to hide with Sotha-Sil so they could work on strange mage-smithing all the time and build things that blow out a lot of steam that makes it hard to see. You see, being educated, I know that Sotha-Sil is very into weird mage stuff and building weird things because I read 2920. And so logically, the dwarves would have went with him, right? He accepted their surrender and the surrender of their lands and gave them a place to live where they could build weird things all day. Was fictional, Sarah. Well, good thing I didn't finish reading it then, don't you think? Yes, I do, Remin said. We kept walking afterwards, swatting away a few cliff racers. What about the other one, the Dres? Some things become so adapted to danger that they can't function in safety, Remin said. That is what I will say about why the Dres don't settle on Vardenfell. Ah, interesting, interesting. So, do you all live in these houses? House is a figure of speech. Perhaps you would understand better if you thought of it as a clan. Oh, that makes much more sense, I said. Yes, of course, clans, because clans live in a house. So, yes, I see it. Yes, and I must correct you. There is no city called Mournhold. The goddess is named Almalexia. Now, I don't believe that for a second. Mournhold is the capital city of Morrowind. Mournhold is a smaller part of the capital city Almalexia, like a central district for the wealthy. No, I know that's wrong. I saw that map of Morrowind a long time ago, but I remember it very clearly. You had Old Run, you had Mournhold, you had Stone Forest south of Old Run. Stone Forest? Right near Markgran Forest. I have never heard of these places. Boy, I said. You know, not to be rude, but that seems a bit thick of you. As we kept going, the land changed. Rather than swatting away cliff racers in pleasant greenery, we were swatting them away in ashy hills with dead, spiky trees. We are getting close, Sarah, Remin said to me. Great news. How do I get back to Skyrim from Old Run? That might be difficult. Travel between Vardenfell and the mainland is currently restricted, due to the risk of blight. The Temple and the Empire have to conduct very thorough, slow checks of everything here, Remin told me. Tedious, but perhaps necessary. I would say you should take the Mages Guild guide to Vivek, and then take a walk to Ebonheart. Ah, indeed. If anyone can help me, it would be a god. The city, not the god. The city or the god? The city, Vivek. I don't see how a city can help me. I do not see how many could help you at all, Remin said. A god definitely could. I'm sure if Kine was right here, she could pop me back to Skyrim. Kine, he said. I am sure you mean Kinnereth. I mean Kine. It's the basic Nordic religion, you know, Kine the Hawk. Her and her kind help us keep protected from the dangerous ones like Orkay or Alduin. Arkay, you mean? I have no idea who Alduin is. Alduin's the dragon god who rules time, of course. That's Akatosh, Sarah. Do you not understand your own religion? Now, look here, Remin. Maybe you think me an uneducated Westerner, but I think I should be cut a little slack in knowing our own traditions as Nords. It looks like you think we worship the imperial cult. Remin seemed puzzled. You mean you don't? I can't imagine where you got that idea. That's strange. I was almost sure of it. I noticed we were coming closer to Aldrune because I could see the giant dead crab in the distance. But Remin had other concerns. His eyes were constantly somewhere to the west, seeming worried. The wind was picking up, and he didn't like it. Weather problems. Universal, I reasoned. But as we were coming into Aldrun, and he was about ready to say goodbye to me, I realized it was something else. The concern on his face was growing. The people on the streets and the guards didn't seem too impressed either. "Uh-oh," he said. "Uh-oh. Blightstorm. Bad one, too. Get inside." Remin practically pushed me into the nearest building and slammed the door behind us. There was a ghastly noise, like an angry dragon with a bad hangover outside. It was like hearing a god throw a tantrum in the other room. "Blight?" I asked. "I don't feel like explaining," Remin said. He looked around. As it turned out, we'd just barged into the Fighters' Guild, where a bunch of other well-dressed-looking dark elves were too, looking about the same as Remin. "Blightstorm?" he asked. "Blightstorm," one of them said. He said, taking a seat with them. "Don't mind the Nord." "Did a witch take his clothes and axe and leave him naked by the road?" a wizardy-looking one said. "It wasn't a witch," I said proudly. He seemed half surprised I could speak. "How nice for you. Well, Remin Sadrethi, yes, we are all stuck in here because of the unusually bad Blightstorm, making it too dangerous to even walk to that crab place," the wizard said. "So we can't do all that diplomacy we wanted, but we still have to all sit in here and pretend that we like each other." Remin just nodded. "These are delegates from the other great houses," he said to me. "Ah," I said. "So, you must be a Telvanni then?" I said to the wizard. "Yes, I am a member of the only house worth being a member of." "And you must be a Redoran," I said to a rather strong-looking elf. He just nodded. "And you, Hlalu?" "Indoril," a rather well-to-do one said. "We couldn't be more different." "You could, if you put your mind to it," the Telvanni said. "I might sell you a mind, if you need one." We all eventually sat down with the rest of the guild, waiting for the storm to let up, leaving us not much to do but to drink and argue for the rest of the night. "And of course, I'm only an uneducated Westerner," I said, "but it seems to me that, outside of Dagoth-Ur itself, the most hostile environment in Morrowind is this ashy bit." I burped. All my elven companions immediately started shaking their heads. The Telvanni insulted me under their breath. "Barring the Fire Mountain itself, Sarah," the Redoran said, barely intoxicated, "the most hostile, toxic, and in general uninhabitable part of Morrowind is the Deshan Plains." "Indeed," the Indoril said. "Toxic environment, toxic myrrh, mounds of useless poisonous salt, soil so stained with chlorine or other acids that normal plants refuse to grow, windstorms that blow that salt into your eyes, nose, and skin, acid rain, wild sky renders, noxious fumes, and worst of all, the Drees, who are possibly even more heathen than the sorcerers here. It's so poisonous. I read a poem written by some dress once, describing the landscape, and I felt ill just thinking about it," the Telvanni woman said. "That, and the poem was just that bad." "Yes, Dres are not good poets," my guide said. "They are not really good anything," the Telvanni woman said. "They're mad. You'd have to be mad to live in the Deshan, which is just as well, because I think if you aren't mad, you probably can't survive there either." "Fascinating," I said, instantly becoming too drunk to stay conscious. Publisher's note. The original skits were set in the Velothis district settlement of Verachan, and the journey took the characters to the port town of Ranim, with Ban Malur as goal. As Vardenfell was recently opened up to colonization, the journey was rewritten to take place on the island, allowing for a more natural flow. An inconvenient Blightstorm replaced the original subplot of impending bankruptcy due to constant mix-ups between Divine and Almsivi intervention scrolls. In addition, Having the dunce take place near the newly relevant settlements allowed more nods towards the incomprehensible names proudly featured on imperial maps, which usually take 2 to 3 editions to sort out. Similar skits exist for the Danstra Dunstior Dawnstar controversy and the notorious Kin I Have My Helm Now Home, It's Windy. Joke knows no peers. As long as the Imperial Geographic Society produces maps for the masses, the Sneezing Hawker Historical Society is assured to never run out of material. A Dunce in Morrowind, Volume 5, by Frolia Silverblood. Once I awoke, being the well-educated future noble I am, I quickly deduced we were no longer in the Deshaan Plains, on account of my no longer feeling as though my organs wanted to escape through my mouth. Even more surprisingly, I found I was not in jail. Oh, you're
A million-eyed insect dreaming. The two conquests of Veloth. A fragment. A unique tale of fabled history. With the sole exception of the Dagoth Sharmat, they have fallen into the worship of the shapeshifter demon Almsivi. Once mortal, this hermaphroditic monster takes the form of 3 persons, each a caricature of one of the higher Daedra. The Almsivi first emerged as a dream-born doppelganger of Sul Alandro, the shield-bearer to the ancient Hortator Nerevar. In the middle of the First Era, the demon chased that saintly pair, known throughout Tamriel for their tragedy, into the heart of Balur, where the doom drum was lost under a blazing inferno of ash and flame. The murder of Nerevar was quick and without warning. To this day, the House Elves mock his memory with a false sainthood. He is depicted among them as a skeleton hung up by the feet. Alandro witnessed this crime, and at the gates of the pit where the greatest Leviathan ghosts of the once dawned reside, the son of Clan Sul stood against his double, clad in chitin and ancestors' ash. His thoughts were blasted from his skull by Almsivi, and the things he had witnessed were forever splayed across his chain hood, the Wraithmail. Over time, this hood was broken into links, and the links into ringlets, and the ringlets were crafted into piercings, so that now every Ashkan and Mabragash of even the most provincial gathering of Netchleather yurts hears the holy whispers of Sul Alandro in their ears. What occurred then needs no explication, as the geological consequences of the Red Moment are recorded in the annals of all Tamriel's lettered cultures. Traveling through dream time, the demon Almsivi kidnapped and enchained the ancient prophet Veloth. That unspeakable monster put false doubts in his mind, and seduced him by stoking these doubts. The voice of Trinimac, the Liar King, now instilled fear in him, for it spoke the words of Almsivi, not Boethia. False apparitions appeared before his eyes. His life became a ceaseless tempest of agony and torment, and in a moment beyond draconian time, Veloth's soul was shattered. The normally stoic and resolute prophet so convulsed with fury and anguish that he rent the flesh from his throat so that he could scream aloud. In this moment of weakness, Veloth was ensnared by the repulsive tendrils of Almsivi, and taken to a dreamscape of malevolent demons that have not walked the earth in ages uncountable. Where Veloth's jailers hid him was the inner chamber of Lie Rock, a heavy stone wreathed in madness, which lies at the heart of Vivek, the greatest city of the House Elves. During the interregnum, the pious Mabragash Bar Zia Sul, whose name is Queen Cinders of the clans Sul and Hlathum, made it her unyielding mission to free Veloth and restore him to his righteousness. For centuries she sought in vain, her sooted face babbling the names of unreal arteries for her betrothed and indentured Ashkans to explore. But there are no apertures in the Mondial membrane which lies between our world and Lie Rock, the recondite keystone of deceit, for it is a chasm within chasms. However, in a moment of clarity, as the Cyrodiil armies gathered against broken borders, the wraith whispers of her ancestor Alandro advised Barzia to wait at a particular crossing of phantasmal planes across a tangential series of moments. The ash face of Barzia Sul has since spoken only of jumbled, distressing woes, so what then occurred would be lost were it not for the register of her Nyx companion, a million-eyed insect dreaming. Waiting for her at that trans-dimensional point, the Hound Records was an apparition of the Emperor, who greeted her despite her obvious protestation. With the uneasy approval of her ancestors, and consequently all the nomadic nations of the Nearer East, Barzia Sul gave over Veloth to save Veloth, sacrificing history and honor for the one the Dark Elves loved more dearly than them both. With this sorry betrayal, Mundus moved in an unseemly manner. Lie Rock was open to them, and Barzia and her host stepped into the prison of the Prophet to free him at last. But once beyond the gateway, they found only golden footprints, impossibly facing east in a world without Orients, until at last they dissipated into images of chitin-clad Nyx mongrels.
A Murder of Crows. A thrilling and horrific tale of soldiers of the Empire fighting the undead forces of the Camoran usurper in the ruins of Crowhaven. A flash of lightning momentarily lit up the encampment, revealing nearly 30 tents surrounding the burned and ruined houses of Crowhaven. Only a single wood elf guard stood watch, sheltering from the pouring rain under a tent awning. "The bastards are getting complacent," growled Andred. "Let us not make the same mistake," replied Emilius. "We wait another 15 minutes until everyone is in position." Those 15 minutes seemed like a very long time to the resistance fighters hiding in a muddy ditch that was rapidly filling with water, but eventually the sky lit up again with lightning. The casual observer would notice nothing untoward, but those anticipating it saw that the lightning traveled not downwards, but upwards. The signal was given. There was no need for morale-boosting speeches. Every man and woman here had lost friends and relatives to the Camoran usurper as his armies had rampaged across Colovia. There was nothing they wouldn't do to stop him. Emilius didn't know what the small force was doing in the ruins of Crowhaven, and it didn't matter. By dawn, they wouldn't be doing anything. The Imperials drew their blackened weapons and silently crawled from the ditch. They were barely 200 yards from the tents, but the guard had no hope of spotting them through the dark and the rain. They half ran towards the wood elf encampment, dividing themselves up so that each of the outer ring of tents was taken by 2 or 3 fighters. Emilius knew that the rest of his men would be doing the same on the opposite side of the village. For a third time, the night was lit up by lightning as Varno, the mage, blasted 2 of the tents. They were too wet to catch fire, but the elves inside would certainly notice the electricity. "For Kvatch!" shouted Emilius. "For the Emperor!" The cry was repeated by each of his fighters as they burst into the tents. Emilius plunged his sword into one, wood elf, and kicked another in the stomach as he jerked awake. Andred dispatched that one with a swing of his mace. A few seconds later, and another 3 elves lay dead. Emilius strode from the tent and stumbled as something grabbed at his foot. He turned and stabbed, but his sword hit only the rain-soaked ground. Then a second arm burst from the earth, followed quickly by a skull and skeletal torso. "Necromancy!" came the cry, and Emilius realized that corpses, both fresh and ancient, were rising across the camp. "Kill the necromancer!" he shouted, and cleaved the skull in 2. The initial ambush had devastated the outer ring of tents, but the elves in the inner tents had had time to arm themselves, and the flow of undead reinforcements threatened to wipe the Imperials out. Shadowy figures surrounded Emilius on every side, and in the dark it was hard to tell whether a man in Imperial armor was a living ally or an undead foe. Lightning flashed again and again as Varno used his talons to strike down the elves, until the flashes were abruptly cut off. "On me!" Emilius cried and ran towards where Varno had been. Something swung at him from the side, and he dodged out of the way. Turning, he saw a wood elf wielding a long spear. The ruin of the elf's face spoke of Andrade's handiwork, but it hadn't been enough to prevent reanimation. Emilius took an arm off with one blow and followed up with a strike straight into the brain pan. The elf crumpled to the ground. Rounding a tent, Emilius saw the necromancer. He had the height of a high elf and was surrounded by streams of ethereal light and dozens of warriors. 5 Imperials were also there, fighting a losing battle against the wood elves and undead. Emilius joined the melee with a wordless roar. He summoned up his pain and grief and poured them into his swordplay, striking down enemies left and right. The Imperials were horribly outnumbered, however, and Emilius couldn't break through the lines and reach the necromancer. Suddenly, Andrade came charging in, all thoughts of self-preservation gone from his mind. He hurled himself at a lightning-burnt undead wood elf, who slipped on the muddy ground and fell onto another. Emilius didn't look back. He killed 2 more elves and came face to face with the necromancer, who panicked and threw a fireball over Emilius's shoulder and into his own troops. Emilius didn't hesitate and struck the necromancer's pointy-eared head from his shoulders. The ethereal light died with a strangled scream, and the undead collapsed to the ground, inert. With their leaders slain and their undead allies defeated, the remaining wood elves began to flee into the night. Emilius ordered his men to stay put. More than half had been killed, including Andrade and Varno, and many of the survivors were nursing injuries. As the rain petered out, Emilius's attention turned to the 3 wood elves who had surrendered instead of fleeing. He looked around at the grim faces of his men, all of whom had lost people to the Cameranite horde. He looked down at the missing fingers on his left hand and felt the itch of the torture scars on his back, remembering how fortunate he had been to escape after being captured in the sack of Kvatch. He looked at the bound wood elves face down in the mud. Emilius drew his hunting knife. It was time for revenge. A Noble's Best Tricks by Sir Dorthan Moros. A nobleman gives some easy advice for self-improvement. The first trick all nobles must know is to go to bed early. You could stay up late, but the haze of sleep would ruin anything you did from that point on. It's better to do no work, I always say, than bad work. The second trick nobles have to know is to rise early as well. You've already slept, and now it's a new day. Nothing can stop you from working or playing. The third trick is a little family secret of mine. Every morning, have a little glass of grief, but then... This is the secret. Mix a small dash of moon sugar in with the beverage. That kicks you out of your morning grog, and everything seems fresh and new. The fourth is a weekly bath. This may seem excessive, but in reality, people are much kinder to nobles who have bathed recently. Deals are much easier to make, and ladies never say no to a man without dirt on his back. The fifth trick is to buy low and sell high. While this is truly common sense, in practice it is more difficult to accomplish. All merchants have the same idea, but what you must do is push, push, push. Why should they take your money when you can just persuade them to give theirs to you? Don't be ashamed to use your status to get a good deal, for that's why you earned it in the first place. Trick number 6 is to greet people in higher positions than you with an exuberant, "Good day." It's always wise to have friends in high places, and with their help, you may one day achieve a higher position than them. The seventh trick is expensive, but extremely useful and invaluable. You should go to your local guild of mages and have them brew you a potion that makes it easier to influence others with your natural charm. There are many social and professional situations where you can tip the balance of the conversation your way by quaffing a potion before entering it. Telvanni Bug Musk works as well, though sometimes may be more expensive than the potion. The eighth is simply a shallow way of increasing status. Keep at least 100 gold in a pouch with you at all times and walk so it jingles. An unpleasant Nord once tried to ask me a question, but I jingled my gold at him and he shied away. It can work for you, too. Trick number 9 is to put a bit of marshmallow oil in your hair to smooth it. Many a lass and nobleman have been awed by this prime little feat when I performed it, and it most likely will work for you as well. For who wants their hair strewn haphazardly around their head? The 10th and final trick is to learn the secret of winking. This trick is the most important because it endears all the recipients of the wink to you immediately. The cause of this is unknown, but believe me, it works. Hopefully these 10 tricks for nobles will work as well for you as they have for me. Good day, and a very good bye.
A Nobleman's Garden by Tamriel. Spiritual implications of an Indorale nobleman's garden. They ask me why I garden. Muth Sarah, they cry. Why do you hide from the world in your tree-lined cloister? What of your duties to house and hearth? They do not understand what it is to be a lord of the true nobility of Restane. Our duty is to sharpen our minds and spirits, and to glean the determined workings of the world so we can guide our children along the path of righteousness. It is in the cultivation of my prayer garden that I find the wisdom for these tasks. Observe the northern wall, along which I have planted sweet barrels. The spines of the young plants bring pain to the touch and discourage close ministration. With diligence and focused meditation, however, they can be made to bloom, ugliness giving way to beauty and the diaphanous out-of-body visions of the sweet pulp vapors. This is the progression of the spiritual self, from resistance to blossoming to the numinous. On the southern wall opposite are a bed of Timsa flowers. Saint Timsa of the Long Hours happens to be an ancestor of mine, and the flowers first emerged from her body as she lay broken at the feet of Molag Bal's Magi. These flowers blossom in sun, rain, and ashfall, and illuminate the virtue of resistance and the futility of profane sorcery against faith. On the western wall, facing the sunrise, is a cluster of bright fire ferns, difficult to cultivate in heartland soil. I use a little of the ash from my hearth fire as fertilizer. The ash contains a trace of my house's holy offerings. This token of faith is sufficient to bring forth these plants from ground which does not welcome them, and once they have taken root, they will endure forever. This is how the laws of the gods, properly interpreted, create citizens of the highest caliber who will never stray from the proper course once they are shown the way. On the eastern wall, facing the sunset, are rows of noble sedge. These plants are my pride and joy because they are grown from cuttings rather than seeds. These particular flowers are, in essence, parts of one flower that has lived since the middle of the Second Era. They represent continuity and careful planning, and give me faith that eternal vigilance and care can engender eternal harmony. In the center of my garden is a stone, upon which I sit in contemplation and occasionally carve my insights. This stone is to be my legacy, alongside my military victories and descendants. Like the garden, if properly tended with wisdom and reverence to the past, it will provide enlightenment to my successors for generations to come. They ask me why I garden. I say I am a lord of the house Indorale, and my garden is a world, and the world is my garden. This is our birthright and our burden.
A Nord's Summary of the Reach. A journey to the very west of Skyrim will lead you to a place untouched by our mighty snowscapes and glaciers. A place where no giant walks and trolls are rarely seen. A place of ancient palaces, green pasturages, and vast forests whose glories seek to compete with Sovngarde itself. This place that we Nords know as the Reach is one of our holds, whose fertile valleys and canyons we have settled in since a time when we still mocked this land as Mirith. Although every child nowadays knows of the events of Ben Darmach, and all those songs about the bloodletting of Karthwasten and Dragonstar, a few unconversant people are still surprised to hear of an infamous conquest our Jarls and Thanes led against our western neighbors in the recent past. In this war we reclaimed most of the Reach, back from the Bretons and Redguards that held it. The victory we achieved here is merely a thorn in the flesh of the desert warriors that today still seek to conquer it back from us. Visitors to the Reach may forget that they travel through the province of Skyrim, for this region is nothing like the rest of our cold homeland. Here we are, governors over crowds of elves, Reachmen, Redguards, and many other people who, in the past, like us, sought home in this unusually warm and fertile expanse. And not only do the climate and the people differ from the cold inside of our province, should you search for the ice wraith-haunted, proud, and snowy peaks that one rightfully expects to see in Skyrim, you will instead find yourself in front of the steep and flat cliff plateaus known as Mizas by the local inhabitants. The Reach is divided into 3 counties, each ruled by a Jarl, as is the tradition in all of the western holds. The first and biggest county, Markarth County, is the seat of the King of the Reach, Jarl Berda the Builder, who resides in the Elven Palace of Markarth's side. The second county, Bjornhald County, is the fiefdom of Jarl Horir, whose longhouse is found at the highest peak of Bjornhald town. The third county, Karthwasten County, is ruled by Jarla Jona the Anseh Slayer, who has made herself a new home in a Redguard-built manor in Dragonstar. Those who plan to travel the Reach should know of the dangers that have been plaguing the region as of late. Travelers are being frequently attacked by Reachmen and other bandits, and it is no rare occasion when Redguard guerrilla fighters lead ambushes against settlements. Last but not least, the wilderness of the Reach is home to many hostile creatures like goblins and minotaurs. In view of those threats, we advise travelers not to strain the railings that border our roads.
A Pearl Betwixt Empires, Volume 1. Part 1 of a description of the Isles of Cathnoqui. It has been well over a century since the Imperial Geographic Society has last conducted a survey of the citizens of the island of Cathnoqui. Initial surveys took place during and shortly after Emperor Uriel Septim Verth added the realm to our empire during his ill-fated expedition to Akavir. The chaos of this time obviously prioritized military matters, which meant scholars could ill afford to better understand the cultural customs of this fascinating land. What work they produced has provided us with tantalizing enigmas, but not, alas, clear answers. Though our empire continues to seek to bring all Neon and beyond under its beneficent rule, our current sovereign, Uriel Septim VII, has wisely chosen this to be a period of consolidation rather than expansion. Thus, it is the perfect time in which to better understand the myriad cultures of which our empire is comprised, particularly those that are often overlooked. As an independent scholar, I chose to undertake a voyage to Cathnoqui in 3E419 in order to learn more about this distant territory. The flotilla, cities of the Chimeri Key. Much has been made of Cathnoqui being an example of man and mer living in peace. It strikes me as peculiar that any citizen would cite this as remarkable. Is not our own empire an example of the same? Regardless, Cathnoqui has long hosted coexisting cultures, the Chimeri Qui and the Keptu Qui. Older documents refer to them as the men of Keptu Qui. It is by fortuitous happenstance that my vessel, a Karak whose Nord captain traded furs for wasabi, crossed paths with one of the legendary flotilla cities of the Chimeri Qui. My first impression was surprise that such an ungainly assemblage of wood and tarp, of barnacle and iron, could even stay afloat, much less survive on the open waters of the Patamaic. The flotilla city I saw, whose name translates roughly as shining net spread across the waves, is in fact a marvel of self-sufficiency. Let me explain. A typical flotilla city consists of anywhere between 20 and 40 vessels. There will be 4 or 5 core vessels of enormous size, larger even than Imperial Galleon, though much slower. The core vessels are of ancient construction. Indeed, much of the wood has rotted away. the hulls held together by a framework of shells and jagged barnacles that give these ships the appearance of mountains moving upon water. The crustaceans living amongst the fossilized hulls have a mutualistic relationship with the crew and have been known to aid in the defense of the core vessels during emergencies. The core vessels are connected by networks of planks and bridges so that, from a distance, they almost appear to be one. Reflecting the egalitarian tendencies seen in Kathnoki as a whole, the core vessels are open to all. Provisions are stored in the immense holds and traded to other Chimeriqui in exchange for goods or labor. Though imperial drakes are accepted, they are somewhat unusual. I do not think that the tradesman from whom I purchased a delicious mahi-mahi was especially pleased that I chose this method of payment. More remarkable still are the long nets of kelp and other vegetable materials that sprawl across the flotilla city. These slimy and glistening strands connect the core vessels to the smaller ships and act as mobile farms. Many Chimeriqui work on the kelp nets, plucking nutritious leaves with which to garnish their dinners. Thicker strands act as walkways so that crew from one ship can cross over to another. Water remains a difficult issue for the flotilla cities. Smaller sea plants, symbiotic to the kelp nets, have been bred to absorb and desalinate water, much like the sadrith mushrooms favored by the Telvanni. The ships themselves are designed to collect as much rainwater as possible, with even the sails cleverly designed to funnel liquid to waiting barrels. Chimeriqui engineering ensures that there is enough water to get by, but the ever-present threat of shortage means that strict population control measures are required. As many as 24 smaller ships make up the outer vessels. The outer vessels are notable for their heterogeneity. Some are fishing ships with strong sails and immense hulls, who will detach from the city in order to harvest from teeming waters. Others are carefully insulated forge ships that specialize in light manufacturing. Swift traders may go to distant shores for unusual goods. There are also small warships of good quality. While the core vessels have allegedly stayed afloat for centuries or millennia, the outer vessels are essentially normal seagoing ships. The Chimeriqui have incorporated ships from a wide variety of cultures into their flotilla cities, so one may see Nord longships, Akaviri junks, and others. I was assured that all ships are obtained by legal purchase. The idea that the Chimeriqui might seize ships and kill the crews is understandably offensive to them. Shining Net, spread across the waves, has 15 outer vessels. Though a 16th had recently been lost in a storm, its sinking with all hands still mourned by the city at the time of my visit. Outer vessels may detach from the flotilla city for months at a time. It's not unheard of for ships from one flotilla city to dock at the kelp nets of another and eventually become part of the new host. The precise calculations that isolated outer vessels use to find flotilla cities appear to be a closely guarded secret. The concept of the flotilla city should be of keen interest to the Imperial Navy. Lengthy supply lines strain any invasion effort of the lands beyond Tamriel, but think of what our legions could do when supported by self-sufficient fleets. Finally, there is the Shore Khan's ship. In truth, it is little more than a glorified scouting vessel that always sails a few days ahead of the flotilla city, using messenger pigeons to relay news to the main body. It is considered a dangerous assignment and a burden of leadership. Saint Thingol Ainch, Veloth at Sea, the Chimeriqui. The descendants of the ancient Chima look much like the modern Altmer, though smaller of frame and rougher of demeanor. While the Altmer praise luxury, the Chima embrace hardship and danger. A settled life is anathema to these doughty mariners, and they pity those who spend their lives on land. It is unfortunately difficult to get clear answers about the history of the Chimeriqui. Responses are often evasive. One I frequently heard was that, who is to say, these days, so long after the departure, accompanied with a slightly embarrassed smile. Regardless, Saint Veloth is still venerated, his visage reproduced on hull and sail. Though I cannot be completely sure about this, my understanding is that the Chimeriqui think that the best way to honor Saint Veloth's virtues is to maintain a nomadic existence. Sedentary life leads to decadence and stagnation, as they believe has happened with both the Altmer and the Dunmer. One wonders what they think of the more rugged Bosmer. The open sea, perhaps, provided a better option for nomadism than could Riesdain. Here, there are no Nordic barbarians or Dwemer automata, simply the endless seas, harsh and cruel, but not without succor for those who know its secrets. Shrines to the so-called Good Daedra can be found throughout the flotilla city. Each ship has at least one, typically an icon of brass and semi-precious stones that honors Mephala, Boethia, and Azura. More attention seems to be given to Azura, but again, it is difficult to be sure given the reticence the Chimeriqui show when it comes to religious matters. The fundamental unit of Chimeriqui society is the crew, which consists of several interrelated families. Upon reaching adulthood, a Chimeriqui will receive a tattoo on the sole of the right foot, the design unique to their ship. This way, they will always walk the deck of their home, no matter where they go. Marriage always occurs between Chimeriqui of two different ships. The husband moves to the wife's ship and becomes a part of her family. Though the father is the head of the family in domestic issues, the role of ship captain typically goes to a mother. She will determine who among the crew is sent to the Wave Council and delegate responsibilities for the maintenance and running of the vessel. As mentioned, resources are always scarce. If the population grows too large, Chimeriqui will depart for other flotilla cities, or as crewmen on non-Chimeriqui ships. The latter choice is considered a hardship, and many sad ballads are sung about Chimeriqui who had no choice but to make their way among strange crews. Yet not all Chimeriqui find the experience disagreeable. I met one, initially from a different flotilla city, who spoke of his days serving in the Imperial Legion and proudly showed me his papers of honorable discharge. Another had made a tidy fortune doing something or other. She refused to elaborate, though seemed pleased with whatever it was she'd done in solitude. Decisions for a flotilla city are made by the Wave Council, a collection of elected representatives who meet on board of the core vessels. Each outer vessel gets one representative, while a core vessel receives two. Meetings occur once a month. The most important responsibility of the Wave Council is to determine what materials the flotilla city needs. For instance, should more food be required, they will determine that one of the outer vessels devoted to fishing will go out on an expedition. Officially, a 2/3 majority is required for any decision, but it is rare, suspiciously so, for the Wave Council to not have a unanimous consensus. The Shore Khan is a nominal leader elected by the Wave Council. They will be the face of the flotilla city to the outside world. In all cases, the Shore Khan is chosen from the crew of a core vessel, as outer vessels cannot necessarily spare anyone for the purpose. Though great honors are given to the Shore Khan, their job is a bleak and dangerous one. By custom, no one may hold the position for longer than 10 years, by which point they gratefully return to the fold. Former Shore Khans enjoy great esteem among their crews. The insular nature of the Chimeriqui means they are not well integrated into large imperial society. Yet this may be beginning to change. Traders from Tamriel are no longer so rare in the Padomaic Ocean, and Chimeriqui merchantmen now dock at ports throughout the empire. Indeed, Chimeriqui have begun exploring the empire of which they are a part. Doubtlessly, a few have been mistaken for tattooed Altmer. Their steadfastness and nautical skill make them assets as citizens, and I predict they will only grow in importance as Uriel Septim VII and his successor, whoever that may be, extends the Empire's Catholic reign.